Okay, continuing in the dinim of Rosh Hashanah. So last thing we discussed, generally speaking, with Tkir Shofar, okay, but we discussed what people basically need to know. Now, okay, and going back to the first day where we don't blow Shofar, so after Musaf, go home, you eat. Now there's also a minig, which is very interesting. There's a minig that after all of davening is over, we blow 30 more tkiyas. 30 more, not tkiyah, but it's called tkiyas. 30 more, like we do before Musaf, we blow again at the end of davening. Now what's the reason for that? So in Shulchan Aruch, the Alter Rebbe writes the reason is in case people were not Yetzer from the first 30, so they can listen again and now and be Yetzer the proper mitzvah Tkir Shofar. In other places it says that, in fact in the Machzor it says that the reason why we do it is to mix up the Satan. He doesn't know what's happening. You finish blowing and all of a sudden you're blowing again. Some people say you blow at Tkir Shofar, Tkir Gedela, that the Satan shouldn't come to prosecute the fact that Jews are now going home to eat and enjoy themselves with a Yom Tov meal. So he said, look at this, all of a sudden they leave shul and they're out to party again. So we do all that stuff.
He's a very smart guy.
Sutton, you'd be surprised.
Pretty smart.
You mean we are stupid who listen to him. Now, for the rest of the day of Rosh Hashanah, especially on the first day, it's brought down, it's preferred not to sleep. Well, in Shulchan Aruch, it's brought down, you shouldn't sleep. Why? Because then your mazel will be sleepy. You'll have a sleepy mazel. So you have a sleepy year, you'll be a fashlaf in a year, you'll have a sleepy year. The story is told, there was a big mashpia in Lubavitch by the name of Rav Shmuel Greinim, and the Rebbe Rashab used to say on the second night of Rosh Hashanah a long maimer, very complicated, long maimerim. So Rebbe Shmuel Greinim went, or it was Matzoi Yom Tif, I remember which day of Rosh Hashanah it was, and he went to sleep. Because these guys didn't stand. The night of Rosh Hashanah they didn't sleep. They were davening a whole day. They were exhausted. So he went to sleep. So somebody said to him, you're going to have a sleepy year, a sleepy mazel. So he said, I'd rather have a sleepy year than a sleepy maimer. You know, he said, I want to listen to the maimer. I need to be rested a little bit. So basically, generally speaking, it's best not to say, not to sleep, but to say Tillim. The first day you can't go blow shofar for people anyway, it's Shabbos. But now we're coming to the second, between the first day and second day, so especially because it's Shabbos, the same thing would apply from one Yom Tov to the next, that you cannot do any preparation until the time of an hour after candle lighting, whatever time that is in Rosh Hashanah. So you're not allowed to do any preparation whatsoever the second night. And even after you do the time is over, because you're coming from Shabbos to Yom Tov, you have to say Baruch HaMavdil ben Kodesh LeKodesh. Before the women do work, whatever. An hour after Lich Bench, whatever time that is. Okay, in a second. Okay, first night is, what am I talking about? 6:42 is Lich Benching. So before 7:42, you can't do any malach. At 7:42, the women, if they want to cook or whatever, they need to do ben shlicht, so they have to say Baruch HaMavdil ben Kodesh LeKodesh, otherwise it's still Shabbos. The men in the Shemona Esrei Ma'ariv the second night, so then you have what's called Vatei Dienu, which is also like Atoch and Antonu, but not between Shabbos and Chol, but between Shabbos and Yom Tov. There's a prayer we say in the Shemona Esrei, it's called Vatei Dienu. If somebody left that out, they just say afterwards, they say Baruch HaMavdil ben Kodesh LeKodesh, and then they could do malach. But you're not allowed to do any preparation for any malach. Ma'ariv is similar to the first night, except it's not Shabbos, so you have a Yom Tov Ma'ariv, but again, you say Vatei Dienu. Now, when you make Kiddush that night, because you're going from Shabbos to Yom Tov, so the Kiddush is what's called Yak Nahaz. Yayin, Kiddush, Ner, Havdalah, and Zman. Because you're saying a whole bunch of things, we're making Kiddush and Havdalah together. So Yaknaha stands for, first you make Yayin Beri Piagafen, then you say the bracha of Kiddush, the Kuf, then you make a bracha on the candles because it's Saturday night. But unlike every Saturday night when we, show our fingers to the candles, here our custom is you just look at the candles that are on the table. We don't do anything with the fingers, we just look at them, and then we say the bracha of Havdalah, the Yaknaha, Havdalah, and then we have the ends with Shechion. Okay, that's what the order that a person needs to do. Kiddush and Havdalah is the second night. But now there's a big, interesting argument in halacha. For many dinim, the day of Rosh Hashanah is called one long day. Like a regular Yom Tov, you have 2 days Yom Tov, you have 1 day, and then you have the second day. By Rosh Hashanah, which is another interesting point, in Israel they also keep 2 days. Biblically, it's 1 day Rosh Hashanah. In all the Chagim, the Israelis keep 1 day. Right? But Rosh Hashanah, even the Israelis keep 2 days. The Gemara says even more, this is all relevant to the halacha we're going to learn, that even in the Bais Hamikdash, sometimes they kept 2 days, Rosh Hashanah. So what's the story? The story is as follows. They didn't have calendars. Yeah. They didn't have calendars. How did they know when the new moon came? So there was the witnesses coming, like it says in the Chumash, the witnesses come, they testify that they saw the moon. So normally what happens, initially the Gemara says in Rosh Hashanah that the witnesses would come, they saw the moon at night, they right away came to Bais Din in the morning, Bais Din checked them out, if they were validated, Bais Din announced, today's Rosh Chodesh. How did everybody find out? So initially the Gemara says they used to light torches. And the first mountain they lit a torch, and the second mountain saw the torch from the first one, and they lit it. In a few minutes, the whole Israel was able to see that day was Rosh Chodesh. Then what happened, the troublemakers used to come, they had them then too. The troublemakers came, and on the wrong day they would go light torches different places. So everybody got mixed up.
Just because?
Huh?
Just because they wanted to? Or was there...
Just to make trouble. There are such people, even today.
Really?
They do things just to make trouble. So what did Bais Din do? So Bais Din would send out shluchim on horseback to the various different places, and normally by the 15th day of the month, when Pesach is, and when Shavuot, and when Sukkot is, everybody would already know when Rosh Chodesh was. The problem was, when it came to Rosh Hashanah, the witnesses came in the morning, okay, and they were allowed to travel on Yom Tov, by the way. They came in the morning, Bais Din checked them out, Bais Din said, okay, it's Rosh Chodesh, which meant it's Yom Tov. Yom Tov, you can't send out messengers. For the witnesses to come to Bais Din, they were allowed to desecrate Shabbos or Yom Tov. But they weren't allowed to desecrate Shabbos or Yom Tov to let people know when Rosh Chodesh was. So the problem is, when Rosh Hashanah came, and Bais Din proclaimed the day Rosh Hashanah, so the Bais Hamikdash knew, that's where the big Bais Din was. They knew, but nobody else knew. Only the guys living right around the Bais Hamikdash. But even in Eretz Yisrael, or even in Yerushalayim for that matter, not everybody found out. There were no emails, texts, whatever. So therefore, even in Eretz Yisrael, they kept 2 days Yom Tov. Then the Gemara tells a story. One time, the witnesses on the day of Rosh Hashanah came very late. They came late for whatever reason. Bais Din thought, they're not coming. If they're not here by now, they're probably not coming. So Bais Din proclaimed that day, not Rosh Chodesh, because the witnesses didn't come. So that means it was still part of Elul. It was Yemei Chol. It wasn't Yom Tov yet. After Bais Din, what was the question? In the Bais Hamikdash, they had to know, are we doing Yom Tov Karbanos or weekday Karbanos? They had to know in the Bais Hamikdash. So they're able to wait until a certain time. After a certain time, they still didn't come. So Bais Din said, that's it, it's not Yom Tov today. After they did the weekday Karban, the witnesses showed up. The witnesses showed up. Now is a dilemma. Because if the witnesses showed up, that means retroactively that day was Rosh Hashanah. right? So what did Bais Din do? So Bais Din made a takana that if the witnesses come after a certain time, the Bais Din will make the rest of the day holy, but the real Yom Tif is the next day. And Bais Din has that ability, the Torah says, Atem afil shegim utoim mezidim. Bais Din has the ability to make Rosh Chodesh when they want. So even in the Beis HaMikdash, they also had sometimes 2 days Rosh Hashanah. So because the 2 days of Rosh Hashanah, the Gemara says, is what's called Yom HaArichta. It's a long day. It's relevant to a lot of dinim with a dead body, a lot of dinim. One din which is very relevant is, do you make a Shechianu the second night of Yom Tif, of Rosh Hashanah? Because if it's one long day, you don't make a Shechianu in the middle of a day. You know, it's the second night, it's the second day, you make a Shechianu. But you can't make a Shechianu in the middle of the day if you already made it at the beginning of the day. So if the 48 hours of Rosh Hashanah is like one long day, so then you can't make Shechianu during the day. So the question is, do we make Shechianu the second night of Yom Tov? So the halacha is that you do. But because there's many opinions that say you don't, so it's appropriate at candle lighting when the woman lights candles and makes the Shechianu. Or when the men make Kiddush and they say Shechianu, you should either be wearing a new garment or have a new fruit in front of you. So when the woman lights candles or the man lights candles, you say Shechianu, they have in mind they're going to eat eventually the new fruit right after Kiddush. By Kiddush, you have the fruit in front of you. Right after Kiddush, you make the Shechianu, and then right before you go wash, then you eat the new fruit. You eat the new fruit. Then the question in halacha is, how much of the new fruit do you eat? Because what's the problem? If you eat a lot of it, then you have to make an after bracha before you wash. If you don't eat a lot of it, then you don't have to make an after bracha. But then you go really into a different question. If you have, let's say you have ha'etz for the new fruit. Now you're going to eat dessert, which is a fruit or applesauce. So now, do you have to make a new bracha? Don't you make a new bracha? Whatever. So because of all that stuff, our custom is that after Kiddush you eat kazayas of the new fruit. We make an after bracha and then we go wash. And to be continued.